Hey, welcome back. Today I have a lot of notes about this book that we read for the Social Anxiety Book Club. Here's the book, I brought it. Can you see? Rewire Your Anxious Brain. I really liked it a lot, and I didn't expect to like. It's not a self-help book, which is, I don't like self-help books. They're okay. It's hard. The self-help book, you do get stuff out of it. Like, I get stuff out of the self-help books. But I don't get, what they are trying to... They always kind of propose, okay, live your life this way and you'll be happy. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So then it makes me feel like, well, the whole point of the book was dumb if I'm not going to live how they want me to. But I'll just take, little things from the self-help. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, when I did the Solve for Happy book, I was like, oh, I kind of like the idea of viewing your thoughts as a separate thing. And you can call your brain Brian and be like, Brian, why did you think that weird thought? Stop that. And that's actually pretty helpful. And in this book, they mention a similar thing. It's called... Oh, wow, I have a lot of notes. Oh, shoot, I had it. Cognitive diffusion. Cognitive diffusion, that's what it's called. I'll get to that later. I might talk about this for 3 days. Or actually, I think I'm going to do the vlog this week on the book. We're going to do the book club on Friday, but usually I don't talk that much in the book club, which is fine. But, if I was going to talk about all this stuff in the book club, it would be just an hour of me talking, so can't do that. Okay, so this book presents anxiety in a very simplified, even I can understand. It's a very scientific, but also simplifies the science so I can understand it. So it says anxiety can be manifested in your brain in two different ways. There's the amygdala way, and there's the cortex way. So the amygdala is your animal, reactive brain, and the cortex is the thing on the outside that's your thinky brain, the thing that creates thoughts. So, and each of them have this is something that I didn't really understand before, but you need to recognize when you're having an amygdala-based anxiety reaction and a cortex-based anxiety reaction, because each of them need different solutions, and if you try to apply one solution to one of them, it's not going to work, which is, I think, what could happen to me in the past. I would use the wrong solution for the anxiety, and it wouldn't work, and I'd be like, well, it's not working, so, these therapy's stupid, or whatever. But the way the book described it made a lot of sense to me. So, there are two solutions. I'm going to super simplify the book, and the book's already pretty simplified, but this is what I took from it. Just read the book. It's really good. Take what I say with a grain of salt, as always, but because I don't know what I'm talking about, but this is how it's going to help me. So, okay, amygdala-based anxiety reactions are if you're in a class and someone calls on you and you get that jolt of adrenaline, that is amygdala based because it's directly related to a situation that's happening right now, and it's an immediate reaction that you can't control. Amygdala is a reaction that happens right away, and there's a stress chemical, I forget what it's called, that gets released. It's a kind of adrenaline, but also kind of, whoa, what's happening? Ooh, I want to go on this. There's another one. It's not adrenaline. There's a stress hormone that gets released. And And then there's cortex-based anxiety reactions, which are like before you go to a social event, you're like worrying, like, oh, I'm going to say something stupid, and those are thought-based. So those are like recurring thoughts or catastrophizing or whatever, perfectionism. That's where all that comes from. Oops. Because those have to do with your thoughts. But there are different solutions to combat those two different types of things, and the one solution for cortex doesn't work for amygdala. You have to use your amygdala to fix amygdala anxiety, and you have to use your cortex to fix cortex anxiety. That's an oversimplification, but that's how it works. So the cortex solution is cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's a lot of different things under that umbrella, I guess. And the amygdala solution is exposure therapy. Wait, did I want to do that? Cortex anxiety is when you're at home, worrying about all the ways it will go wrong. You can rewire your amygdala. I didn't think you could. I didn't know that. CBT focuses on cortex, stopping anxious thoughts. What was the... So a couple things for CBT is to... instead of worry, plan, which is good advice, obviously. Instead of worrying, like, oh, this could go wrong, I mean, those are good thoughts to have. So just be like, okay, let's plan for a couple different eventualities, and then we'll stop thinking about it because we have our plan. Okay, if this happens, let's do our plan. The other thing is to do cognitive diffusion, which is to not fight your thoughts, but be aware of them. I don't know where I'm going. This must be the right place, but there's no doors. Why would it just bring me down here and then... There must be another button somewhere. Do I want to go down? No. What is happening? Whatever. I was on a roll with this thing, so I want to keep going. Being aware of them. Your thoughts aren't you. They're just a thing. I've mentioned that before, and I like that the book kind of reiterated that. Like, your brain is just an organ, like your stomach or like your liver. And your brain's job, one of them, I mean, your brain is super complex, it does a lot of different things, but one of its jobs is to create thoughts. That's what your brain does. Like, so you can control your thoughts, but it's also like you can control your breathing, right? Most of the time you don't control your breathing, and most of the time you don't control your thoughts, but you can if you think about it. So, one way to help to stop anxious thoughts, to stop like circular worrying, is to be aware whenever that happens, and to be like, instead of being inside it, and to see your thoughts as you, and oh, I'm thinking this way, and that must mean it's true. You have to step outside and like let your thoughts go, but also view them as like, oh, it's interesting that right now I'm having the anxious thoughts that I always have before a thing. That's like maybe the first step of it, is just acknowledging those thoughts as like, oh, these are the anxious thoughts that I always have, or that my brain always has. View it like that. Maybe this is something. Oh, okay. The amygdala one is the amygdala one is actually probably easier to fix in some ways. Well, exposure therapy is really hard because it involves you doing the thing you don't want to do, which is like talking. But it's easier because you know exactly what you have to do. You just have to do the thing. Sometimes CBT can be hard because you're like, well, what thoughts exactly am I supposed to be having right now? Like, how do I stop these thoughts? So exposure therapy helps you with amygdala-based reactions because what you're doing is like, to simplify it, like in the book they simplify it. They're like, oh, you're afraid of snakes. So when you see a snake, you're having an amygdala fear reaction immediately. You see a snake, I'm scared. When you think exactly, like, when it comes to snakes, it's probably a genetic, like, evolutionary thing. There's a genetic evolutionary aspect to all anxiety, pretty much, but, like, especially with, she made an interesting point, which is, like, a lot of us are afraid of snakes and spiders, but, like, more people die from cars. Why aren't you as afraid of cars as you are? I'm not afraid of a car. Like, if I see a car on a street, I should be afraid because more people die from cars than they do from snakes. But that's just because we haven't evolved to be afraid of cars, but we've evolved to be afraid of snakes. So the way to... You have to use your amygdala. I always, in my head, I keep thinking, amygdala, Queen Amygdala. It's so close. Whenever I type it out, I'm like, amygdala. How do you type that? So you do that by putting yourself in the situation that triggers your amygdala, but not making it a negative experience. So you have to cover yourselves in snakes or whatever. I mean, you have to do it with a therapist, so you do it the right way. And I'll talk about that tomorrow, like how to do it the right way, because that's really interesting. Because part of it is like with social anxiety, you're in social situations your entire life. So you're like, well, I've done the exposure therapy, haven't I? No, you haven't. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. And I kind of proved that with the improv thing and how, like, I'm not nervous about improv anymore, really. And I've only been doing it for, like, 2 months. How did that happen? I did exposure therapy the right way this time, I guess. So instead of having negative experiences with your amygdala, you cover yourself with snakes. And you keep yourself covered with snakes until you're not afraid anymore. Until like 3 hours later, and the snakes are just there, and they're eating like crickets and stuff, and you're like, oh, this is fine. I could do this forever. But you have to. Okay, so that's tomorrow's note, though. That's how it works. That's what you do. So I covered a lot today, but I really like this book. Get this book. Has a lot of cool exercises in it. Oh, and this is a used book, and, ooh, what does this say? Somebody wrote something here. I can't read. It says something recovery. I'm curious what that is. Can you read it? I can't read it. But this is, the guy, his name was Chris, who suggested this book, and, this is a really good book. And, I listened to the audiobook, but there's, like, cool little diagrams in here, like, here's your trigger, it's the cat, but you need to calm yourself, or whatever, I don't know. I remember cat scratching, that was part of it. but really good, and I'll talk about it more tomorrow. See you tomorrow.